A pleasant morning to all. This is Christian B. Tuayon, your first speaker for today's presentation. Our group is assigned to discuss the Lesson 7 of the Contemporary World, which tackles about the media and globalization. So before we start our discussion, let me introduce first to you the members of the Group 5. So first, I am Christian B. Tuayon, an Infotech student, and I am going to discuss the media and its functions. Next to me is Mr. Enrico Bucao, an Infotech student also, and he will be discussing the global village and the cultural imperialism. Next, we have Mr. Mark Angel Villalon, an accountancy student, and he will be discussing the critics of cultural imperialism. And lastly, we have Mr. John Ethan Chimisuna, an Infotech student, and he will be discussing the social media and the creation of cyber ghettos. Coverage of the discussion or topic to discuss. So first, we have the introduction. So in the introductory part of this presentation, we will be introducing to you the media and globalization. So we will be digging more about the vital role of media on globalization and how cultures and ideas are shared through different forms of media. So the second part of this presentation would be the discussion about the 4 subtopics of Lesson 7, which are the media and its functions, the global village and cultural imperialism, the critics of cultural imperialism, and the social media and the creation of cyber ghettos. So the last part would be the conclusion. So in this part, we will be giving our insights on what we have learned all throughout the discussion. Learning outcomes after the discussion. So at the end of the lesson, there are actually 4 learning outcomes that we are expecting you to learn that you should be able to 1. Analyze how various media drive forms of global integration. 2 is to compare the social impacts of different media on the globalization processes. The third one is to explain the dynamic or the differences between local and global culture production. And the last one is to define the responsible media consumption. So when we say responsible media consumption, it talks about how we use media as our advantage. Media and globalization. So globalization entails the spread of various cultures. So what does it mean? When a film is made by a certain country, so of course it is not only shown on that particular country, it is also shared on different cities across the world. So a great example of this is the K-dramas or also the Korean music industry, in which it is amazingly popular not only in Korea but also here in the Philippines and to other cities across the world. Another example is the Gangnam Style by South Korean rapper Psy that was actually released on July 15, 2012. Gangnam have been about a wealthy suburb in Seoul, South Korea, but its listener includes millions who have never been in Gangnam. Some of them may not even know what Gangnam is. So Gangnam means the south of the river. So specifically, it is a popular place in Seoul, South Korea. Globalization also involves the spread of ideas. So from one light or spark forms a flame. So what does it mean? So it means that when someone chooses to voice out their opinions with the help of globalization through social media, many could possibly relate on it, forming a voice of many so that we can attain the change that we are aiming for. So a great example of this is the woman empowerment or any advocacies that can help us to attain the change that we are aiming for. Today, television programs, social media groups, books, and magazines have made it easier for the advocates to reach a larger number of audiences. So globalization relies on media as its main conduit for the spread of global cultures and ideas. So why is media considered as the main conduit, the spread of global culture and ideas? So it is mainly because if there is no media, the world will not be able to see the other things on the other side of it. Jack Lul was then asked these three questions. So for the first one is, could global trade have evolved without a flow of communication on markets, commodities, prices, and more? For the second one is, could empires have stretched across the world without communication throughout their borders? And for the last one is, could religion, music, poetry, films, fictions, cuisines, and fashions have developed as they have without the intermingling of media and cultures? So I guess the answers are no. So why it is no? So it is mainly because there are intimate relationship between the globalization and media which must be unraveled to further understand the contemporary world. And now let's proceed to the first subtopic of this lesson, which is all about the media and its functions. So Jack Lul described media as a means or ways of conveying something, such as a channel of communication. So technically speaking, a person's voice is a medium. However, when commentators refers to media, which is the plural form of medium, they refer or they means about the technologies of mass communication. Media and mass communication have four types. So the first one is the print media that include books, magazines, newspapers, or any other articles that are printed. So the second one is the broadcast media that involve film, radio, and television. So the third one is the digital media that covers the internet and mobile mass communication. And the last one is the internet media that contains the email, internet sites, social media, and the internet-based videos or audios. While it is relatively easy to define the term media, it is more difficult to determine what media do and how they affect our society. Media theorist Marshall McLuhan once declared that medium is the message. Media as a form of technology reshape the societies. Thus, television is not a simple bearer of the message. It also shapes the social behavior of the users and reorient the family behavior. Since we get to be impacted or convinced of something, it builds influence. Today, smartphones allows users to keep in touch instantly with multiple users at the same time. On the other hand, they extend people's senses because they provide the capability to talk to more people instantaneously and simultaneously. They also limit the senses because they make the users easily distractible and more prone to multitasking. It is not necessarily a bad thing. It is merely change with a trade-off, since media could change someone's approach over something. McLuhan added that different media simultaneously extend and amputate human senses. New media may expand the reach of communication, but they also dull the user's communicative capacities. According to him, new media neither inherently good nor bad. The famous writer was merely drawing the attention to the historical and technological specific attributes of various media. And now, let's proceed to the next topic, which is all about the artificial intelligence. So what is artificial intelligence? So artificial intelligence, or AI, is the ability of a computer or a robot controlled by a computer to do tasks that are usually done by humans because they require human intelligence and discernment. Although there are no AIs that can perform a wide variety of tasks an ordinary human can do, some AIs can match humans in a specific task. History of artificial intelligence. So the father of artificial intelligence was John McCarthy, and he is also one of the founders of AI. Timeline or history of artificial intelligence. So in 1950, it was the turning test of artificial intelligence. So in this period of time, they test the machine's intelligence. In 1955, Logic Theories is the first AI program designed to mimic or imitate problem-solving skills of humans. In 1959, General Problem Solver is the universal problem solver for non-specific purposes. In 1964, ELIZA is the program that could carry on a brief and limited conversation. In 1980, Shaky is the first electronic person, general mobile robot that reasons its own actions. Year 1997 was the creation of Dragon System. It was the first publicly available speech recognition software. So aside from that, there is also Deep Blue. It is a chess-playing computer that defeats world chess champion. In the year 1998, Kismet was created. So Kismet is an emotionally intelligent robot that detects and responds to feelings. Impacts of AI on our society. So artificial intelligence impact on our society is widely debated. Many argues that AI improves the quality of everyday life by doing routines and making complicated tasks better than human can, making life simpler, safer, and more efficient. Other argues that AI poses dangerous privacy risks, exacerbates or worsen racism by standardizing people, and cost workers their jobs, leading to greater unemployment. So to sum it up, the use of artificial intelligence might be useful on us, but we should not forget that artificial intelligence has its negative impact. So as a user, we must be cautious and responsible enough, and we should not be abusive in terms of using the technology that we have. So I guess this is the end of my presentation with regards to media and its function with the additional information of artificial intelligence. So up next, we have Mr. Enrico Bucao that will be discussing to us the global village and cultural imperialism.
Global village and cultural imperialism. McLuhan declared that television was turning the world into a global village. McLuhan argued that television as a medium of communication had the power to create a sense of global interconnectedness and a shared collective consciousness. He believed that television's ability to transmit audiovisual content to a mass audience across vast distance was breaking down barriers of time and space and bringing people from different cultures and societies into closer contact with each other. According to McLuhan, television's visual and auditory nature allowed individuals to experience events and information in real time, creating a sense of simultaneous participation and involvement. He saw this as a departure from print culture, which he argued fostered individualism and linear detached mode of perception. Global media had a tendency to homogenize culture. Global media has been associated with a tendency to homogenize culture. This phenomenon is often referred to as cultural homogenization or cultural convergence. It occurs when dominant cultural products and values, primarily from Western countries, are widely disseminated and adopted around the world, leading to a reduction in cultural diversity and the erosion of local traditions and practices. However, it's essential to note that the impact of global media on cultural homogenization is not uniform or uncontested. Local cultures often engage in acts of resistance, reinterpretation, and hybridization. They find ways to maintain their distinct identities and adapt global media to their own cultural context. Additionally, there is a growing recognition of the importance of cultural diversity and the need to protect and preserve local cultural expressions in the face of globalization. Overall, while global media has the potential to contribute to cultural homogenization, it is important to recognize the agency of local cultures and the complex ways in which they interact with and respond to global media influences, commentators, and cultural imperialism. Commentators have expressed concern about the potential for cultural imperialism resulting from media globalization and the dominance of American media and values. They argue that the overwhelming presence of American media content in the global market, coupled with the economic and political power of the United States, can lead to the diffusion and imposition of American cultural norms, values, and lifestyle on a global scale. It's important to note that these perspectives are not universally held, and there are debates about the extent and nature of cultural imperialism in the context of media globalization. Some argue that cultural flows are not unidirectional and local cultures actively engage with and interpret global media content, contributing to the formation of new hybrid cultural expressions. John Tomlinson. For John Tomlinson, cultural globalization is simply a euphemism for Western cultural imperialism, since it promotes homogenization. John Tomlinson, a cultural theorist, has indeed expressed the viewpoint that cultural globalization is essentially a euphemism for Western cultural imperialism. He argues that the spread of Western cultural values, norms, and practices is often distinguished as cultural globalization, which creates an illusion of diversity and mutual exchange while reinforcing Western dominance.
Hello everyone, I am Archangel Grufalde Villalon and I will be discussing about the critics and cultural imperialism. So the proponents of the idea of cultural imperialism ignore that the fact that media messages are not just made by producers, they are also consumed by the audiences. In the 1980s, media scholars began to pay attention to the ways in which audiences understood and interpreted media messages. So, pay attention is always on how the audiences understood or interpreted the media messages. So, the study emphasizes that the media consumers or watchers can involve a meaning-making process wherein they view the text or the content in their respective cultural lenses. Next slide, please. So, in 1985, Len Ang, in an Indonesian cultural critic, studied that the views or the ways in which different viewers in the Netherlands experience watching the American movie Dallas. So, naghatag siya og very detailed nga analysis of audience viewing experiences from the letters of 42 viewers that watch the American soap operas Dallas. And she noted nga ang mga viewers that part is put a lot of emotional energy or they were emotionally involved into the process of watching soap opera Dallas, and they experience pleasure based on how the program touched and resonated with them. Next slides, please. So, Elijo Katz and Tamar Liebes in 1990 push Ang's analysis further by examining how viewers from distinct cultural communities interpreted Dallas. So, and it argued that texts are received differently by varied interpretative communities because they derive from different meanings and pleasures from these texts. So that means that different people with different cultural backgrounds had their own ways of understanding the show, and they had their own ways of interpreting the content or the context of the show. So in this study, they found out that Russians were suspicious of the show's content, and they believed that not only it was primarily about America, it also contains the America propaganda, wherein ang mga American viewers nito nga ang show kay mostly about sa mga kinabuhi sa mga dato. Next slide please. So apart from the challenges of audience studies, the cultural imperialism thesis has been belied by the renewed strength of regional trends in the globalization process. So aside from Western media spread through media globalization, then are also other cultures which spread with the help of media. So an example of this is Asian culture. An Asian culture of these are Japanese brands such as Hello Kitty, the Pokemon, animated movies, and the animes, which is now part of a popular culture, and that is spread globally. And the another example of this is Korean pop or the K-pop and Korean telenovelas or K-dramas, which are widely successfully globally, and so given that there is no need to push a globalization, and it is a directional process or one way of wherein foreign cultures would overwhelm local, and globalization will always remain on an uneven process because it's not perfect. It will produce inequality for them. So these are the Asian culture that has boomed worldwide through the globalization of media, which is the Hello Kitty, the animated videos, the animes, and the Pokemon. And that would be all. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Today I will be discussing about the social media and the creation of cyber ghettos. By now, very few media scholars argue that the world is becoming culturally homogeneous. When we say homogeneous, what it is? Homogeneous is one in which the shared meanings are similar and little variations in belief existence. That is, the culture has one dominant way of thinking and acting. And then, apart from nature of diverse audience and regional trends in cultural production, the internet and social media are proving that the globalization of culture and ideas can move in different directions. Regardless of the diversity in difference of people in the different regional trends or famous current things, social media proves that it is moving in a different direction. Like kung unsay famous ron or into mga publish online, people can see it at 1 minute, and that itself can make an impact or effect sa other culture. While Western culture remains powerful and media production is still controlled by a handful of powerful Western corporations, the internet, particularly the social media, is challenging previous ideas about new media and globalization. New media gave the people the right to do what they want in it. It has become their platform to voice out injustices and free themselves against the government against the government, because we all know that millions of voices sparks as one can cure injustices. Yes. Anyone with an connection or a smartphone can use Facebook and Twitter for free. These media have enabled users to be consumers and producers of information simulationally. Simulationally. The democratic potential of social media was most evident in 2011 during the wave of uprising known as the Arab Spring. What is Arab Spring? Arab Spring was a series of anti-government protests, uprising and armed rebellions that spread across much of Europe in early 2010. Because of this uprising where in the spring of 2012, the name Arab Spring was coined. So, what is the story of Arab Spring? Without access to traditional broadcast media like TV, activists opposing authoritarian regimes in Tunisia, Egypt, and Libya used Twitter to organize and to disseminate information. Their efforts toppled their respective governments. More recently, the Women's March against newly installed U.S. President Donald Trump began with a tweet from a Hawaii lawyer and became a national, even global movement. Media can also be a way to voice out someone's supported ideologies, example LGBTQ rights. That's all. However, social media also have their own dark side. In the early 20s, commenters began referring to the emergence of a splinternet, and the phenomenon of cyber-balkanization to refer to the various bubbles people place themselves in when they are online. What is a splinternet? Splinternet is the idea that the open, globally connected internet we all use splinters into a collection of fragmented networks controlled by the government or corporation. And while cyber-balkanization, an internet that is increasingly fragmented due to the nations filtering content or blocking it entirely for political purposes. In the United States, voters of Democratic parties largely read liberal websites, and voters of the Republican Party largely read conservative websites. This segmentation notes an article in the journal Science has been exacerbated by the nature of social media feeds, which leads users to read articles, memes, and videos shared by like-minded friends. As such, being on Facebook can resemble living in an echo chamber which reinforces one's existence. Beliefs and opinions. This echo chamber precludes users from listening to or reading opinions and information that challenge their viewpoints, thus making them more partisan, partisan and close-minded. This segmentation has been used by people in power who are aware that the social media bubbles can produce a herd mentality. It can be exploited by politicians with less than democratic intentions and demandious wanting to whip up popular anger. The same inexpensiveness that allows social media to be democratic force likewise make it a cheap tool of government propaganda. Russian dictator Vladimir Putin has hired armies of social media trolls, paid users who harass political opponents to manipulate public opinion through intimidation and the spread of fake news. Most likely, American intelligence agencies established that Putin used trolls and online misinformation to help Donald Trump win the presidency, a tactical the Russian autocrat is likely to repeat an European elections they seek to influence. In places across the world, Putin imitators replicate his strategy of online trolling and disinformation to clamp down on dissent and delegitimize critical media. Critics of critics of the increasingly dictatorial regime of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan or threatened by online mobs of pro-government trolls who hack accounts and threaten violence. Some of their responses have included threats of sexual violence against women. As the preceding cases show, fake information and can spread easily on social media since they have few contents filter. Unlike newspapers, Facebook does not have a team of editors who are trained to sift through and filter information. If a news article, even a fake one, gets a lot of shares, it will reach many people with Facebook accounts. This dark side of social media shows that even a seemingly open and democratic media may be co-opted towards undemocratic means. Global online propaganda will be the biggest threat to face as the globalization of media depends. Internet media have made the world so interconnected. Users must remain vigilant and learn how to distinguish fact from falsehood in a government media landscape that allows politicians to peddle what President Trump's senior advisor now call alternative facts. True people must remain critical of mainstream media and traditional journalism that may also operate based on vested interests. We must also insist that some sources are more credible than others. A newspaper story that is written by a professional journalist and vetted by professional editors is still likely to be more credible than a viral video produced by someone in his/her bedroom, even if both will have their biases, bias. People must be able to tell the difference.
Hi, I'm back again to sum up for the conclusion for this lesson, in which it showed up that different media have diverse effects on globalization processes. And at this point, it seemed that global television was creating a global monoculture. And now it seems more likely that social media will splinter cultures and ideas into bubbles of people who do not interact. The societies can never be completely prepared for the rapid changes in the systems of communication. In every technological change, and after all, it creates multiple unintended consequences. The consumers and users of media will have a hard time turning back the clock. And though people may individually try to keep out of Facebook or Twitter, just like for example, this media will continue to engender social changes. And instead of fearing these changes or entering a state of moral panic, everyone must collectively discover ways of dealing with them and responsibly and ethically. This sums at the point that social media is very pervasive and it cannot be stopped, nor people can do anything to stop it. And even if someone is not prepared of its diverse consequences, the fact that it is already there and it's part of our life. And we must acknowledge that to avoid any negative effect on it in our social and political life, we must know our responsibilities and as a users or users of the media or social media. We must be vigilant enough to distinguish which is not fact or the opinion and where social media to our advantage.